On the Regenerative Journey, our goal is to nurture and facilitate the lives and journeys of all our followers, which is why we've teamed up with resource consulting service RCS, Australia's leading provider of education and advisory services in regenerative agriculture. RCS trains and consults across the ag sector, from individuals and families through to corporates and even government, empowering people to grow productive and profitable businesses in diverse and, importantly, healthy landscapes. They understand that the future of healthy families, resilient communities and regenerative farming lies in holistic education. Over the last 15 years, they've played an integral role in my own regenerative journey, and I have a lot to thank RCS for, and I'm one of 7,500 others who have attended their farming and grazing for profit course. I don't know where I'd actually be, and I certainly wouldn't be this far down my own regenerative journey if I hadn't completed a significant amount of training with the RCS team. I can't recommend more highly RCS to anyone looking to start their regenerative journey in a supportive and proven environment. Terry McCosker and your team, you absolutely rock. And we're also absolutely stoked to be collaborating with them now. For my listeners only, we're offering a 10% discount on all farming and grazing for profit schools and grazing clinics in Australia this year. If you add this to the early bird rate of a 7-day school, you could get a whopping $1,000 off the standard price. Simply add the code CharlieRCS, that's CharlieRCS, that's one word, at the checkout to get your concession. How awesome is that? Now head to the show notes to find out more.
The world, it feels like it's unraveling, and more people are looking to be in a space where they can feel more self-sufficient. And the need to be in community and safety in numbers, I guess it is, but to be able to grow food and to feel supported and not be alone has never felt more important.
That was Angelica Arnott, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey.
From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day and welcome back to The Regenerative Journey. This episode, the guest, the subject, the victim of this particular episode of The Regenerative Journey is my wife, Angelica. But before I intro her officially, I just wanted to do another little Roma, round out my arse, as Reese likes to call them. Not too long and not too... I wouldn't want to upset people, would I, by saying things that I... might regret. No, I don't ever do that. Well, there is occasion I do. But nonetheless, as they say, if you don't have a few enemies, you're not having a go. Now, talking about having a go, this is the first time we've had a go of recording in our caravan. It's actually a pretty obvious place to be recording, to be honest, because it's like a studio. I think the sound's good. Reese hasn't he will. If on listening this, he might say it's a bit echo, but it feels and sounds pretty good. I'll just turn the light off. Hang on. There we are, don't need that. And mobile studio, awesome, which we'll be spending some time in this caravan in the next couple of months for a number of different reasons. One of them is to not host, we're not hosting, other farmers are hosting, facilitating some biodynamic workshops up in Queensland. By the time you good people are listening to this, we will be, when it comes out on the 3rd of May, there'll be some workshops up in Queensland, they being the 22nd, 23rd of June at Claremont and sort of central Queensland there, 25th and 26th, which is actually a weekend at Billawheeler. Check out for those who don't know where Billawheeler is, how rude, you need to know and get yourself a ticket to that one there. And the 29th and 30th at Kin, which is near sort of Sunshine Coast, the Braes there have kindly lining up for another hosting job of our 2-day Introduction to Biodynamics workshop. And in July, on the 14th and 15th of July, Kay Tomer up there at her wonderful dairy, her family's dairy, in the Scenic Rim, which is kind of the border regions. I don't know if I get in trouble calling it the border regions. It's sort of it's in Queensland, and it is wonderful part of the world, beautiful. Actually, Rose Wright and her colleagues put on a wonderful regionality workshop there, or conference there last year, nearly about this time last year it was. So there's some workshops you can line up and go and see. What's on my mind this week? Look, lots really. Some interesting things have come up on the socials and just in not the mainstream media. I don't watch that bollocks at all, really. And some people go, well, you've got to look at both sides. Well, I don't know that the side that they're banging on about is necessarily not biased itself. So enough of that. But what has come up is sort of an option, from what I understand, and I think it's legit, is the UK government are offering sort of retirement or kind of get off or get out of farming packages or payouts or payments, which is interesting because I know that for some time, certainly the UK and maybe some of the European countries, which is different, certainly different sort of approach to what happens here in Australia, is sort of subsidies for product, like directly, like if you produce X amount, you'll get paid extra as a subsidy, or conversely, interestingly enough, if you don't grow it, we'll pay you not to grow it. And I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's about just not having too much supply or oversupply. But there's lots of kind of I guess it's regulation. It's a financial regulation. Some may say positively, and farmers getting paid money not to grow things or to grow things as a subsidy from government. I understand that's not something they would ignore. But that to sort of offer farmers payments to retire maybe earlier than they were going to, or just sort of get out of farming. I don't know what's behind that. I think that's interesting. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with some of the reports coming out of the States of there being movements to, I don't know how you'd frame it up, make cattle farming, meat farming, beef farming illegal. I don't think it's quite the right word to use, but certainly putting pressure on, and I think there's certainly need for more accountability in the industry and meat in general, on some levels more than others. However, I think if the sort of the whole anti-meat movement has got to a point where governments are considering making it very, very much more harder for farmers to grow meat, and fair income ones who are doing a good job already, and also in hand supporting things like Meat-Free Monday, or whatever sort of kind of incentives that universities are, some schools, some institutions are implementing, don't get that at all, to be honest. I know I sort of often talk about this whole debate, and I am a farmer of beef and mutton, lamb. So some would say I have a vested interest in taking a side on this, but having said that, I try and remain reasonably objective about the pros and cons, and where people sit in the argument and why and what their agendas might be. And just again, looking at the science, it's a pretty well-worn statement. Follow the science, trust the science, whatever. But the lovely thing is more and more science is actually and research and information is available that supports pretty conclusively that animal farming done right, and when I say done right, like a grass-fed basis, I'm sticking really to sheep and cattle, done well in a number of particular ways, is a very significant contributor to the sequestration of carbon. If that's the problem we're all trying to solve, keeping in mind we've got to keep that cycle that carbon cycling, that's the other thing too, isn't it? That we often get caught up in, we're going to reduce emission, which is not a bad thing. As I might have said before, I think a lot of kind of non-farming conscientious people, whether they, and generally they're not farmers and they kind of haven't stepped in that space, and whether that's because meat's involved and cattle and sheep and animals, and that's kind of, they get nervous about that, as I might have mentioned in other rants. Or they just don't understand it, and they just think that, emissions is kind of, if we stop it going out in the atmosphere in the first place, well, that's a good thing. And it's not a bad thing at all. But then, the whole other side of the equation in the cycling, which is as important as anything, is cycling of carbon. It's the building block of life. Then we've got to consider that, sequestering that carbon back into the ground, with so many benefits is a really important part of the whole carbon cycle, and then if we take that sort of a few steps into the realm of politics and the sort of the social context of that, then we're talking about climate crisis, as some people refer to it. I just think that a lot of people are missing the whole point of solutions, to whatever issues, problems we feel are occurring in the environment. I'm really supportive of methods that actually sequester carbon as well as those that stop emissions. Don't get me started on wind farms again, because that's all about apparent or supposed reduction in emissions because we're using wind power as opposed to gas and coal. I've got to stop going back to that, haven't I? It's a bit of a thing that I've got because I feel like the greenwashing of, that was my first experience of greenwashing, was that whole wind thing, I think I said enough of that last week or previous week, so I won't bang on about that. My view on that's pretty clear. And that's probably enough of a rant. I don't think there's too much else to bang on about. If I haven't already, RCS Convergence, 16th and 17th of July in Brisbane at the Entertainment Centre there. Get your tickets on rcsc2022.com.au, rcsc2022.com.au. Grab your tickets, virtual and in-person presentations and people. It's going to be a wonderful thing. It's been a few years in the making now with all the hold-ups and stoppages. So I trust that is going to occur, and it'll rain, hail or shine. It will occur and it'll be wonderful. So get your tickets to that because they will be going pretty quickly. The closer we get to that event, the more that those tickets will become sought after as people go, oh shit, I can actually get to that now. I just get your seats, get your comm, all that sort of stuff sorted ASAP, and I will see you all there. That's enough for me. Now, Angelica Arnott, my wonderful, beautiful wife, agreed to an interview. We sat on the veranda or the little, just inside actually in the loft, which is a sort of a second story of I guess, is it the first? So you're at the ground floor and then you have a first floor, don't you? It's not a second, it's a second story, but it's the first floor. That always confuses me. Anyway, the floor above the ground level, in our loft at home at Hanamino, and it was wonderful. We, not having, I didn't research. I'd already researched it. A bit. Actually, when I was researching, there actually wasn't much Google going on. There wasn't much to see. And there wouldn't have been anything to find either. But she is a wonderful, lovely woman, and she was wonderfully transparent and vulnerable. She did feel like she didn't kind of put enough meat on the bones of this interview, but I have to disagree. She just, gave it her all, and I'm actually thinking that we might do a seasonal. Each season we might just do a catch-up with her. I'm going to sit down with her, not so much talk about rehash her own regenerative journey, but just to talk about current affairs, projects. There's no X in projects. Must be I don't know what's going on there. What's got a lisp all of a sudden. And do that every season. I think there's merit in that, sharing some of the wonderful conversations we have. So I trust you enjoyed this wonderful interview with Angelica Arnott, my wife, as much as I did recording it on the Regenerative Journey. Angelica Arnott.
Hello, Chuck.
Ni la Bazetta. Welcome to the Regenerative Journey, and welcome to your your
My life.
I've forgotten.
Welcome to my life.
Your mother-in-law's loft.
Oh, I know the loft very well.
Here at Hannaminno.
Such a great space.
So we are sitting up here in the loft. I've done a few interviews up here before, or two I think. It's a great spot.
It is.
The idea being that we're looking out over the dam, or the lake as some people call it, but we just call it as the dam, down looking towards the southern part of the world. We are looking at unfortunately some turbines. I'm not sure if I've mentioned some previous intros for some interviews for season 5. I have mentioned my disdain for wind farms, and there's some good reasons behind that, which I won't go into now because it's all about you, not them. But we are looking at them, sort of.
Well, I'm hoping we can be strategic and plant something just about here, so we block them out from the garden view. What do you think?
I reckon we work something out.
I know we're not going to be able to hide them. They're monstrous, but I don't think we need to have them spoil our view while we're out here.
In our face.
No.
Which they're not really. They are. You look for them and you can see them. But nonetheless, Angelica, as is the name of the podcast, The Regenerative Journey, I'm here to dig deep into a deep dive. I know I said that once and you weren't. You said that sounds silly. This is interesting because I know you better than anyone in the world, I think. Probably even better than myself. And I was thinking about the research for this. Do I research? Do I not? I didn't do any research.
You didn't?
Well, there wasn't many stones unturned.
Well, I thought you were going to dig up some dirt that I didn't even know.
Look, I know you were young and needed the money, so it's all in the past.
I know. I had a very boring upbringing. There was probably no dirt on me that hasn't already been dug up.
Now, before we get to that, I just want to, as I said, we're sitting in Mama's loft. We're looking out over landscape.
So beautiful.
What does it mean? What does it mean to you? Like, why? Well, I know we're going to get to why you're here, but I mean,
what this has become to me.
What has become to you? Yeah. What's it mean to you to sit up here on a Saturday morning with the wind whistling through that weeping willow?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on your show. What a privilege it is. Not only
it's taken me 5 seasons to get there.
To have, to be here with you, but to have dialogue with you uninterrupted, or so we think. Kids are off wandering around the place and hopefully they won't end up paddling around in the dam. But to have the opportunity to just have a conversation and hear thoughts out loud and ask these questions, because I think, in our busy lives we forget to dive deep into each other's, dreams, desires, aspirations, whatever you want to call them.
Goals. Fantasies.
Although I'm trying to eliminate the goal-oriented lifestyle. It's driving me a little bit batty. But, just to hear ourselves have a conversation, and hopefully that will be not too boring for your listeners. But
we better keep in mind that there's other people listening.
Yes, too. I will. We'll keep it on board.
Don't say anything rude.
So back to your question, what does this mean to me and what it has become to me? There's a journey in there, and there's a lot of information and a lot of thoughts about that, because I think when I first arrived at the farm, I just didn't understand the vastness of it all, the overwhelm of being in a place that demanded so much of your time and energy and focus that there didn't seem to be much room for anything else. And I found it very confronting in more ways than one. The fact that we, you had to keep working when you're out here. And I always thought that we were here to relax and be in a country environment and enjoy all of those wonderful, advantages of being in country, fresh air and the likes. But I found it just a little bit confronting in terms of there was nowhere to run and hide. You had to really deal with who you are, what you are, and without the distractions of being in a city. And I found that a little bit, confronting, as I said. But over time, I have come to learn that that's been the greatest lesson for me out here. To slow down, to be at one with the pace of things here and not to be challenged by that, and to really enjoy the learning, I guess. And you've taught me so much about being in nature that, of course, I just see now that what I was missing in the first place was that I just didn't have that in my upbringing, and it was all new to me. So I'm grateful to be here now. I have dialogue with nature now. I have an understanding and appreciation now that I didn't have when we first got here. So, yeah, big journey.
And not over.
Oh, certainly not. No, it's actually interesting, not over, just beginning. And I think it's just turned around for me, and I guess, the world's feeling a little unstable now, and the only time I really feel a sense of stability and safety is when we're here. So, yes, that's bringing up a lot, to be honest.
COVID there were some good things about COVID, wasn't there? Or
I think there's been more good things about COVID than not, to be honest.
Which has always been it's always a choice, isn't it? That, adversity presents opportunity, or opportunity for growth and so on, or opportunity to fall in a heap.
Well, we've chosen not to fall in a heap, and I think we've chosen to see that we have to get fit and deal with the changes that are coming, because I think it's only just begun. And that means we have to build some resilience, not just for us, but for our children. And so that's my driver, and I'm pretty sure that's yours too, if I can speak on your behalf. I think we're driven to, well, first I know we have to get fit in many ways, but spiritually fit is one of my biggest concerns.
Goals? Is that one of your biggest goals?
That would be a goal. All right, that's a goal. I want to get spiritually fit, because I know that when making decisions about our future for us and our children and our community and our family at large, I don't think we want to do it through the prism of fear or lack of abundance, or, I think we need to do it through the eyes of creating a world that is sustainable for us and, our community, that enables growth and love. And we can't do that if we're afraid. So that's how I'm feeling right now anyway. That's my driver.
I'm a bit of a driver too sometimes.
Yeah, well, you drive me crazy most of the time. But hey, love you to bits, babe.
That's my job. Yes. Okay, let's step back in time to where do you want to start? You did mention before your early childhood. Let's go back to that, because it's really about the steps and stages along the way to, your in your journey. Where do you want to start? Well, do you want to start? I mean, this is going to be the interesting thing. I kind of know stuff, so I don't want to be too promptive. Is that a word? Preemptive.
No, look, I'm not big on dredging up the past either, so it's always been a tricky conversation for me when people ask me where I've been, what I've done,
It's going to be a pretty short interview, this one.
We'll cut to the chase.
Angelica, that was lovely. Thank you.
All right, I can go now. No. Well, how far back do you want to go? Is it interesting that far back?
Well, I guess, heritage, Nun. I mean, that's probably that's in it, and both sides. I mean, because your heritage makes up you.
It does, and I have a rich heritage in terms of my father being an Italian, my mother being an Australian, and probably raised in a tumultuous situation that was very loving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they were young, and Mum and Dad were young when they got married. Mum was 16, I think, when she had her first child. And they were learning all their life lessons while they were married and raising children. And it was confronting to watch as a child. I remember growing up in that dynamic thinking, there's something not right here. But I knew I was safe and I knew I was loved. So it wasn't too traumatic, but it was a little off. And I was raised in suburban Victoria, and I just found that whole landscape of living was depressing. And I knew it. I was at ill ease with it all when I was young. And I remembered having moments of just trying to plan my escape. And that was very clear that I just wanted to get out of there. And I did. as fast as I could. And then my journey began. I just sort of, went to work, and I fell into all of my career paths along the way, excuse me, without much planning and forethought. So I just kind of rolled along.
Before we roll along further, can we just go back to, say, Nun, your father, and kind of, because I guess I'm looking at his journey to Australia, and then what that created for him, foundationally, and then you as a daughter of him.
Yeah, it's a big one, because as Dad's sort of moving into his final stages, I have a lot of recall about that, and there was a lot of stuff that wasn't said between us, and it's really sad, because I don't think I'm going to have those conversations with him now. But yes, he was on a boat out from Stromboli, the island of Stromboli in Sicily, when he was 15, and he arrived on, the Australian shores. You don't have any tissues, do you? I've got a runny nose.
You keep talking, I'll go around one up.
And he was collected at the docks from his brothers and thrown into work the next day.
In Melbourne, got to Melbourne.
In Melbourne, yes. And he went straight to the fruit markets in Footscray, I think it was. And Footscray, and he worked every day of his life from that moment on. But he did not have a great command of the English language, and unfortunately the Sicilian dialect that he vaguely recalls now. It's all right, darling. I can manage. I can just.
Oh, no, this is a few.
I can use my sleeve.
Oh.
Okay. And anyway, so Daddy just knew work. That was his survivalist mentality. He worked. He provided for his family, and he was a good, honourable man. And the lessons I learnt from my father were, many, but one of the main ones were. I'm a bit tongue-tied.
Doesn't matter.
Right, thank you. Maybe I get a little bit emotional talking about my dad. Were life lessons about food and, where your food comes from and how important meal times were together as a family. And that was a gift he gave me. And food is medicine as well. For an uneducated man, he had a lot of wisdom and knowledge about what it took to heal any malaise. So if anyone was unwell, he'd pop off into the kitchen and make something that he thought was appropriate to help heal. And that's a gift he gave me.
He's a kind of a, I don't know, shaman's not the right word, but a
medicine man,
medicine
maybe.
Man, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, and that was just innate to him. That was just an instinct that he knew, how to look after us.
Mm. Okay, I'm just going to adjust your microphone there on your...
You just want to get
I don't want to get
touchy-feely. Thank you.
How's that?
Better.
Sitting all right?
Yep, it's fine.
Proceed.
Yeah, so that's it, really. What else do you need to know? You know all the other stuff. I don't think it's that
but no one knows that. Well, other people do, but not as many as I hope they're going to hear this. But I guess, yeah, I mean, because we reference Nun a lot. He's an amazing gentleman who when I asked for your hand in marriage, because people did that still then.
They still do.
I remember very clearly at David, your brother's house.
Yes.
Walking up the stairs.
Yes.
I guess they knew or something was up.
Oh,
was
maybe.
Had you told them?
No,
you said,
of course
hey,
not.
this bloke's going to turn up?
No, it was a secret, and I'm good at keeping secrets. Not really.
So not.
No, of course I didn't.
Anyway, that was a good one to keep.
Yeah. God love him.
So, okay, fast forward a little bit to escaping the family sort of.
I don't know. Well, I just made a plan to get out of there. I left home really early, and I started working as a secretary as soon as I left school.
16?
Yeah, 17 and 17. And then I just knew that wasn't for me either. So I was planning and conniving and scheming to further my acting career, which I always wanted to do. And I got myself an agent as fast as I could, and I started working in doing bit parts in TV series. And then
with how much acting experience?
Not a huge amount, but I just had a lot of chutzpah, and I found an agent, and I was able to just get the work. And
you're a bit of a sort too.
And it was a bit of a sort. No, not really. Yeah. And then somehow I fell into a modelling career because I decided that's what I was going to do, because someone offered me the opportunity to do that. There was much more money in modelling, and I loved it. It was just a fantastic career. I had a ball. And then again, somebody offered me an opportunity to be in a band, and I took that as well. So without going into all the detail, that's how my career progressed. It was pretty much just being open to the opportunity and saying yes. And I had no resistance to any of it, because I just felt confident in all of those decisions. I just had no doubt. And that's just who I am. If it feels right, I just say, yes, here we are. And so, yeah, and then that's how I travelled along until I met you.
No, there's a big gap there. Don't be sneaking out of there. What were the TV shows you were in there before?
Oh, God. Well, the last one I did was Home and Away.
But that's fast forwarding.
That's fast forwarding. And then I did all the cop shops and the Sullivans and
Cop Shop with Tucker. What was his name? Gil Tucker.
Yeah, that's
Remember
right.
Gil Tucker?
Yeah.
Did you work with Gil?
Oh, probably. No, I don't think
he was a little guy, the
no,
sort of gingery hair. Yeah. He would have been on it.
Yeah, I don't think I worked with him. I can't remember, to be honest. And all those Carson's Law and all of those, Australian TV series.
Crawford Productions.
Oh, yeah, that's where I got my first job, actually. Cop Shop, I think it was.
And
then, so that was my lofty career.
So band, because there's a good story about the band, about how you all sort of came to, for those. Oh, well, you tell a story. I don't want to take
how the Chanteuse evolved. Yeah. Well, yes, again, it was just one of those opportunities. A girlfriend of mine said that she'd like me to come over to her house to sing some songs, and I thought that'd be fun. And we pop a bottle of champagne, and we all sat around singing, and she introduced me to some of the members that are in the band now. And we did that on a Thursday evening just for a few months, and then I decided that they were all much better singers, and I thought maybe I won't continue on doing that. And they rang me and harassed me until I came back. And then we started rehearsing for one of the girls' birthday parties, Toddy Goldsmith's birthday.
And this is what year, roughly?
Oh,
just
God.
To put it in put you on the spot. No, 1987.
87?
Yeah.
1987. And her father was the nightclub owner of the Underground in Melbourne, Brian Goldsmith. And God bless his soul, what a guy. And he came up with the name for the band, and he decided that if we were to get serious, he would give us a residency at the Underground for 6 weeks. We did that. And during that time, we had a record rep come in and signed us to Mushroom Records. And within, I think it was about a month, we had our first album, our first single released.
Which was?
Which was Witch Queen of New Orleans.
That's it.
Which is fantastic.
Not an original, but it was a cover. No, I'm not taking away from that. It's just
testing
awesome.
the waters, and it did really well, and that's how our story began. And we had a fantastic time touring Australia, and I saw Australia and the industry in its day where live music was a thing, and you'd travel around and you'd go from town to town and you'd be playing at all the pubs and clubs, and they'd be packed. And that was before nightclubs were a big thing. And we had a great time. That's where I forged all my true friendships and got to see Australia.
So, I mean, as a male, a young Australian male,
yeah,
I was. I still am. Well, I'm not sure. Are you?
No, I am.
Are you a female?
No,
I'm not a biologist, so I can't tell.
Don't be cheeky.
We'll have that conversation at some point. I'm not allowed to tell anyway. So you were 4 good-looking women.
Yes, we were.
Who were singing, and it was quite a new because I know there'd been sort of duos that kind of in that area, late 70s, early 80s Aussie duos kind of ladies, and we met a few on the tour.
We did.
And individuals, but I guess 4 girls and 4 guys on the instruments and so on, musos. That was a new thing, wasn't it? That was quite a. I
think we were quite innovative.
Act.
Yeah, we were. There wasn't anything like us in Australia at that time. There was Bananarama. I think they were in.
There's only 2 of them.
No, there were 2.
There's only 2 of Banana. Oh, was there more?
3.
They came out here, didn't they?
They did. I think there's only 2. There was only 2 then, but
yeah, okay.
Anyway, there was we were quite original in terms of the lineup, and we had a boy band, and we were strong and fun, and we weren't music cred, but we sure as hell knew how to put on a good show.
It's fun.
And so we played to packed houses most of the time, and we had a really fun run.
Well, you also opened a few AFL grand finals, and
we did.
That sort of
you
stuff.
Remember that?
Oh, you told me.
You must have been.
I Googled. No. It would just come up in conversation. I don't know over the last how many years.
Really? I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Yeah, but that's quite a thing, because that's almost the pinnacle of Aussie music. Barnsley's opened a few, and
then the Chantusies came off.
Yeah,
I remember running on and running off as fast as I could. So yes, it was. Well,
and that would have been the old MCG too, when they probably packed 110,000 people in there.
No, I don't think we did the MCG.
Didn't you?
No.
Where would you have done the?
No, I think it was in Sydney somewhere.
Oh, okay.
At the would it have been the cricket ground?
It would have been cricket ground probably. Yeah, because that was before the Homebush and so on.
Oh yeah, no, we were truly famous, honey. Like we had some highlights.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. And then there was kind of the opportunity to, there was a potential to go overseas.
We did get the offer from Stock Aitken and Waterman, and
who had made Kylie
famous,
Rick Ashley.
We had some resistance from the boys at that time. They didn't want to do that, so that was a big no. Don't regret that moment, but yeah, we could have gone overseas if we really pushed the idea. Didn't happen, but okay, that's what was meant to happen. It was fine. So it was a good time in my life, and I don't regret for a minute leaving the band and doing what I did next.
Before we go to next, I just want to say I've met all the girls many times, and they were your bridal party for the your wedding, which happened to be my wedding too. Here, actually, right in front of us. Back in the day, and they are the most lovely girls, and I can just see how your friendship was forged on buses, on the road, in pubs, in clubs, doing those gigs. Like, you just have this unspoken kind of respect and sisterhood, and it's the first time I'd been. Again, as a male, you don't necessarily have insight into that sort of thing, and it was just wonder. I learned a lot even just from that the your ups and downs and so on, and you're still buddies after. So how many? Yeah,
very important relationships, and a very important formative. Those formative years where they know everything about me. I know everything about them, and I hold them in my heart, and I love them dearly. I don't necessarily see them all the time these days, but yes, forging relationships there. At that time in your life, as you know, you've been through, university, made all of those friendships, and hopefully you're going to see a lot of those people tonight. We're going to a party tonight. I can't believe it. It's 3 years since we've been anywhere.
Smiley's.
Yeah. And the value of having friends that understand you and love you and don't judge you. And I've just come to a point in my life now where I hold that as one of my sacred knowings. That's very important to me.
So band kind of, you what was the next stage in your, and I guess, reference kind of, regenerative kind of, well, not regenerative, it's really not the right word, but kind of epiphanies or kind of learnings along the way that you might have had that a bit of a standout, and often as a result of challenges you had or anyone has is those epiphanies and learnings and lessons?
I think as far as a regenerative journey, started for me in terms of my awareness of what was going on, especially when I was in the music industry. There were some choices that one had to make to survive, and I was acutely aware that, and I guess vanity was probably a driver for me. I didn't want to feel unwell while I was touring. I knew I had to be in peak physical condition. I had to kind of, look after myself. And that's something that I was gifted. My dad always stressed that if we weren't nutritionally topped up, we weren't going to survive any grueling routine. And so while we were on the road, fortunately the girls and I all thought the same way. And we looked after our health in terms of it. In the days that we were touring, you couldn't just pop into the local health food shop and get your stores. There was nothing in, country Australia. It was hard to find anything healthy. So we'd have to bring all our own food, and we would, have packs of brown rice and tahini and all our, anything that we could, miso soups, anything we could take with us. And we'd get to a pub and we'd, raid the kitchen there and make our own dinners. And
get a burko.
Get a burko, cook up your broccoli in a burko. It was fun, and it was a great way to, keep us healthy, I guess. And we all exercised as well. And that was something that I just kept, pursuing. And it became a bit obsessive at one point. I remember thinking, well, if I drink, if I smoke, if I take, party drugs, not that I ever did, but I chose not to because I just knew that I wanted to have a long and healthy career. And then that's where it started. I just, knew that by the time I had children, I was obsessed with the idea of making sure that every meal was so full of the nutrients they needed to get through a day, that was, my thing.
Can we just go back to that? Because it was something that you think rock and roll, because really you were right in the middle of the Australian rock and roll scene. You're kind of pop rock because you had
very poppy.
Yeah, but
more pop than rock.
But you were certainly right in the middle of a part of that industry.
The heady days, yeah.
The heady days, yeah. So I mean, one, again, referencing young Australian males, you just think, oh, how cool would that be? Lots of chicks, lots of beers, lots of parties. You know, I mean, I'm a boy, you're a girl, so that's kind of my naive perspective. But just stepping back from that, we hear stories, we understand. There is all sorts of there's a good and a bad side of that whole industry. Bad as in addiction and kind of just spiraling downwards for some performers for whatever reason. You individually and as a group were pretty, from what I understand, clean.
Yeah, I think some were better at it than others. I was really good. Like, they called me Nana because after a gig I'd probably, I'd chuff home and have a hot chocolate and get into bed and wait for the door. Evie and I probably did that together. The rest of them would sneak in and, tell us all what they got up to, all night long. But we were, on the whole, we were all very health conscious.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's funny to think that all those years watching, because one of the first things that would happen when you'd roll into a wherever we were, a gig, the first person that would arrive would be the Coke dealer, and that's just the way it was. And I used to think, what? Why do we need that? It's a high just being here. It's a high just getting on stage. It's a high having an audience just, looking up at you, waiting for the next bit to happen. And I loved all of that, and I didn't want to addle any of my, memories of that, because I do recall a lot of, some of the famous Australian icons that in their day wiped themselves out with the amount of drugs that they did. And the regret that they have for not being able to recall their heyday. It was so sad. And so, I wanted to be in the moment. I wanted to be present, and I was aware of that even then.
There was another question I had about that, which was something about old mate turning up there. Yeah, look, I mean, I guess that's, for a lot of people, that's like, that's just part of what you do.
Yeah, no,
you're an Aussie rock icon. Yeah,
exactly. It was, but a lot of the boys had this preconceived idea, and I say the boys because it was more the boys that would spiral out of control. That it was, I called it the Jim Morrison Complex. That they'd feel that was just the way you had to be. Yeah. You had to be reckless and abusive to get through it. Because it was cool and groovy, but it just was so not cool and groovy. And, I watched a lot of careers spiral out of control and a lot of lovely lives just get, wasted. And, yeah, it was a good lesson to have, I guess, at that age. I've tried to impress my children with that, the fact that I've never done a drug in my day, ever. And tell them stories of how I survived the rock and roll industry without doing any substance abuse at all. And they often look at me and just go, yeah, that's lovely, Mum. Good on you. Like, dag. What? I know.
Well, it says a lot about you.
Well, it just says I'm pretty straight, and like I said, what my dad instilled in me stayed with me always, that we have to look after ourselves.
Well, call it straight or call it
daggy.
No, sensible, but call it kind of true to your values,
Always. Look, I've never had a problem with owning that. And it didn't matter how much peer pressure I was under. I just loved being able to say, no, thank you. That's not for me. And it always felt empowering. I felt it then. I never buckled under the pressure of, everybody else doing it. And I always felt that I could always rise to that level of that energetic level just by osmosis. If I wanted to stay at the party and didn't want to take anything to keep me on a high, anything artificial, I just energetically vibe in. And that was my osmosis moment. And that's how I survived most of the partying and fun times.
And still do, somehow.
Still doing it, still practicing that, trying to teach my kids how to do that. Don't need drink, don't need anything else, just need to feel the energy and let it take you there. That's it.
What's the next bit then? So that was kind of, when did that stage of your life, which I got to taste when not long after we met, but we'll get to that later. What was the next sort of stage of your
I remember coming home from a tour one day thinking, I didn't own a home, I didn't own a car, and I wanted to have children. And I was starting to feel like, my life was not going where I wanted it to. And that maternal instinct was starting to stir. And I just thought, this has been the best time of my life, and we could do it forever and ever, because it's just the sense of freedom that goes with it. It's a high. And I just remembered thinking, no, it's time for me to start getting real. And I we didn't own cars because we didn't need them. We didn't have to worry about where to live because we all lived together and we were so used to sharing hotel rooms together. It was just, it was too unstructured for me at that time. So I just remembered saying to the girls, I think I'm ready to stop. And it was about 7 or 8 years down the track. I'd had enough time to work out that was, a chapter in my life. I was ready to move on and I wanted to have kids. And I did. I decided to go. And it was an easy decision. I've never looked back, and here I am today, and still grateful for the journey that I was on, but happy to have moved away from that.
What else?
And then I went overseas and I studied acting in LA for a while.
Sorry, can we go back? There was something, just to go back to your, and I guess this is the benefit of knowing you well, just to pump your tyres up for a minute, when you were, I think when you're 17, 18 doing your secretary thing, someone nominated you, or somehow you found yourself in a competition.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you about that.
Yes.
No. We don't need to. See, this is the uncomfortable bit about talking with you, because you know it all, and I'm not good at dredging up my past. I've told you
it's not, well, you don't, it's past, but.
No, we don't need to talk about it.
Tell us.
No, don't you dare. Because anyone can Google it and find out anyway, but it's just, we don't need to go there, because it wasn't part, don't think it was part of, it's not interesting.
Looking for more information to assist your regenerative journey? Come join Charlie and his guests around the kitchen table, an online community of supporters with exclusive access to the Regenerative Journey interview transcripts, live online Q&A sessions, a chance to engage with other like-minded people and more. Go to www.charliearnott.com.au/the kitchen table, and we look forward to sharing a yarn with you. Now let's get back to this week's episode.
Okay, well, without divulging what that actually was, can I just highlight the fact that for me it was a example of the wonderful, beautiful person you are in your charitable nature.
All right, we've done
without giving it all away.
So I was Miss Australia Charity Queen.
I think it's
told
awesome.
anyone that. It felt a bit daggy. Come on, let's be honest.
No, I think it's actually. I mean, look.
I nominated myself, okay? I'm just going to override you there. I nominated myself because I was sitting in the office when I was being a secretary thinking, no, this is not fun. And, flipping through the paper, they used to advertise for people to join the Miss Australia Quest. And I rang the lady and just said, oh, that looks interesting. What does one have to do? And she was at my office in the next hour saying you would be the first person that's ever rung to volunteer to be in the quest. And I thought, oh, how odd. Okay. And so I was in part of the quest. I ended up raising a whole bunch of money for the Italian community and won Miss Australia Charity Queen. How embarrassing.
Oh, yeah, so cool.
No, it was a lovely time. I did.
And you went overseas?
I went overseas and I worked for it was called the Spastic Society in those days.
Yeah.
It's not any longer, clearly. But, I had a really lovely time. I did. I, had to travel. I actually won a car, a wardrobe. It was terribly exciting. But, it was just one of those things I did without thinking about too seriously.
Well, again, an example of something you didn't have to do,
Well,
took a
no,
bit of
it
work.
ended up, I understood what I'd done once I was in. I was working with kids with cerebral palsy and that's when I understood the value of the work that, raising money and I really enjoyed it. It was a really heartfelt moment, going to the society and volunteering time and enjoying my time and understanding that the disability wasn't as grave as I thought it was. It was just a physical disability. A lot of those kids understood exactly what was going on and were able to communicate in some of the most poetic ways. And one of the most moving stories I heard when I was there was that a young boy was on an excursion with a whole lot of kids from the that they all had cerebral palsy from the society. And when they got to the stop, everybody got off, but one was left behind. And he was unable to communicate, obviously, at the train went on. He got stuck. And then somewhere along the line, he wrote a story about what had happened to him. And I read the story and it was just so moving and so hard to read because he just felt that sense of abandonment, was able to articulate every single emotion that he had. And yet in that time that he was on the train, nobody paid much attention to him because they thought he was unable to, intellectually disabled. And it really drove it home for me that, we have to take care of these people and be there and communicate as openly and honestly as we do with each other, our able-bodied friends. So yes, it was a big learning curve for me. I loved it.
I'm glad we went there. See, gold.
Yes, I know, and I bury a lot of my, my past. I do. I don't talk about it enough, I guess, because there are moments where yes, we need to recall some of the loveliness.
Okay, back to. The next stage, I think you were just saying, went to LA.
Went to LA, popped myself into an acting school, had a really lovely time, and was going to come back and
you had no boyfriends up to this
no,
stage,
I had no boyfriends, but I did reconnect with my very first boyfriend, and that story is how that journey was how I became pregnant, had my two children, and that partnership didn't last. And I raised my two children alone for about 11 years, and that's when I met you.
Before we go to that bit, I also want to...
I love cutting to the chase, don't I?
But I guess, you were doing Home and Away then.
Yes, I was.
And because I marvel...
I was also doing other... I did VJing for MTV. I was doing Home and Away, and there was something else I did in the meanwhile. When I had Venus, and she was 3 months old, and I went back to work. And that was a whole new set of challenges for me, working as a single parent. I found that quite tricky, and I realised it was not sustainable very early on.
And I remember you saying, for Home and Away, you kind of didn't you just ring them, or you got to a point when I just can't do this.
No. I knew it was tethering.
Because you were having to drive from Bondi to Palm Beach every day, every morning at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah, and have to find a babysitter to come in and, do the handover at that time of day, and it was, pretty unreliable. But Venus got sick. She had measles. And she was at daycare, and I was in the studio, and I got a call from the daycare centre saying she's got a temperature of 42. She's asleep in the playground, and we need you to get here now. I literally saw stars, grabbed my keys and ran, and I ran out of the studio, which is unheard of. And, of course, the producers rang me and said, "That's just ridiculous. You can't be doing that. You're sacked." And I went, "That's fine. I don't care." And I went home to tend to my beautiful daughter, and I got her well, and I did get sacked, and that was a whole story in itself. But again, get your priorities straight. I needed to be there for my child. There was nobody else I could call on. And that was the end of my acting career. I have no regrets, Charlie. I have no regrets. And what would you do in a situation like that? I'm not going to be pleasing producers over caring for my child. And a temperature of 42 is enough to alarm anybody, isn't it? They had no sympathy or no concern for that at all. Fair enough.
No, it was gutsy. Because you put your family first.
Always.
Always, yeah.
Still doing that. Yeah. You're my family, Charlie.
So tell me then, I'm just trying to get yes, and then what happened?
So then that's when my regenerative journey started. I realised that I had to look after children, emotionally, spiritually, physically, nutritionally, and that became my world. And I also went on a healing journey for myself, because I'd been through some trauma with the separation, and I knew that I had to do the work in order to change my life so that it was healthy and whole, so that I could impart, healthy and whole living on and understanding for my children. I had to do some work, and I went into therapy, and I did as much, self-help. I read every self-help book there was, and you can still see in our library. I looked at it the other day, and God, I did some research. And I had, a wonderful therapist that I saw for about 10 years, who we ended up seeing together when we first got together. I did the work, and I was ready. By the time I met you, I knew I was ready to have a happy, whole, healthy relationship. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to, get through what we had to get through. Blender family, the tyranny of distance that we had to deal with, all of that stuff was, challenging. But I know that we got through it because of the therapy and the work that we did.
Just writing a little note there, little time code. Got some gems there.
You're good at doing that.
Well, I think that, just looking at the after books you've read, it kind of shows, and I've read a few of them, but your level head is very evident. Where when we met, you'd been through adversity, and clearly, because we know people, and we've both got friends, and we kind of, even people we don't know personally, but kind of get, where people sometimes get up to in life. Again, they have a choice. They can choose to do the work.
Yeah.
And acknowledge things, and literally read the books and do the therapy and do the courses or whatever. which you chose to do. And then there's that fork in the road where you can go, well, it's all too hard. And, you know, from their perspective is that, you know, well, I guess it's a victim mentality.
Oh, yeah, well, that was something I wasn't going to suffer. And when you've got children and you're their entire world, you know, I was mummy, daddy, you know, grandparents, I was it. I just couldn't bear the thought of being unable to cope, like to be weak emotionally, to be weak spiritually. I knew I had to be robust in my management of myself so that I could give that to them. But it's still a work in progress. I'm still trying to better myself so that I can be an example to them always, you know, and I don't always get it right. And you're witness to that more often than I even understand. But that's our job. That's what we're here to do. And I take that seriously. It's a never ending quest to improve and to, you know, strengthen your resolve, your, you know, understanding who you are and what makes you tick is it for me.
Which shows?
Someone's hammering something out there.
There's a bird. I think there's a bird out
it's a bird
in the bathroom.
Yeah,
on the window.
No,
he did that. He did that before.
He's so cute.
Let me in. It's quite. We were going to do this in the house.
Oh God!
We were going to have a crack yesterday. It was raining, and I came up here, and it was quite noisy in here. And anyway, the house was the option, but I just knew that there'd be little people.
Oh no, harassing.
As fun as that would have been to have them cruise around.
It's nice in here, but it's getting cold. I'm starting to feel shaky.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you want to try and find one of my blankets?
Fine.
No, there's a blanket around the corner.
I can't be bothered getting up. It's all
sure?
Good. Yeah.
Well, maybe when you get on to the next bit, you can. I can grab you a blankie. Then did we meet then?
Then did we?
Do you want to tell us?
Sure we met.
Do you want to tell the story about how we met? I'm not sure if I've shared that with on the machine.
A bit of a rough trot, and a very dear friend of mine, Clivey, who we love to pieces, recommended I do Landmark Forum. And he was a landmarkian and decided it would be the best thing for me. And I did. I took myself off, and that's where I met you, because somebody had obviously suggested you do it too.
Well, 3 people.
3 people?
Well, 3 kind of occasions when it was
separate
suggested.
Occasions? Oh, yeah. That's pretty cool.
Well,
okay.
Different people and kind of around the same time. Yeah.
And that's how we met. And that was a life-changing experience on many levels, because it was for me, it was like, as I said, I'd done a lot of self-help, and that was like all the modalities that I'd read and been interested in, you know, in one. And it was well crafted and beautifully orchestrated, so that all of that learning was delivered in a way that was so impactful and so easy to absorb that it changed my life. And I know that it moved yours enough for you to let me in. And I've never looked back. I think Landmark was a very, very positive thing for us.
Well, we reference it quite often. Yeah, in terms of kind of sometimes. Not religiously, but it's kind of it is certainly a turning point.
It was, and it worked. Point. It worked well for me in that time of my life. I understood that, you know, all the unraveling of all the things that I was doing that was holding me back. I was able to let go of. And it was just, you know, a lot of freedom from there. It was great. So, yes, Landmark.
And I just want to make a point here. Landmark comes up every now and again in these interviews because the guests are kind of being in those circles, and a lot of them have been, and certainly Terry McCosker, we talked about in the interview
of course,
that have just come out.
Too, yeah.
So there's no kickbacks for me to mention it. I just want to be clear on that. And it's not something like I'm like, oh my God, everyone's got to do it, otherwise you're not going to survive the world. It is just, for, again, as I was saying, a reference point for me that was significant. It seems to be the case for many other people who've done it. And we talk about it because it always appears as a turning point in people's life journey, regenerative journeys, you know, so that's why it comes up. It's not because we think I think everyone should go and do it. And for me, it was special because not just with the learnings that I had and the the stripping down I got, and then the kind of the building back again in those few days, or we did the advanced course, didn't we? A month later. But can I tell people what?
Yeah, no secrets here.
Well, there's certainly none when you're at the landmark. So there's a thing at Smoko. I'm not sure if I've told this story before, another thing or not. I don't know. But anyway, nonetheless. So there's just before morning tea or Smoko, someone, the person up the front facilitator said, right, we're going to try and help everyone get home tonight or get here in the morning, and just, so just to help coordinate that. Who needs a lift somewhere, and everyone sort of goes, oh, well, who's driving and can take people to, say, Bondi or to Strathfield or whatever else. So there's kind of a little bit of very quick coordination there, and people then go off at Smoko and have a chat and, say, oh, I saw you, can we go, whatever. Anyway, I saw Angelica's hand. Actually, the first thing I walked in the room and you were wearing blue jeans and an orange T-shirt and your beautiful black hair, and you were sitting at the front, right up the front, talking to a lady next to you. And I went, oh, my God, I didn't know this was like a dating bloody workshop too. This is cool. Anyway, you were stunning. And I went, no, hang on, stop. I'm here to sort some shit out. So, but I couldn't help it at the Smoko little session when they did that. You put your hand up and you were basically saying you were heading to Bondi and whatever. So I sauntered over there at Smoko and you were still sitting there and chatting away. And I said, oh, excuse me. And couldn't help but notice you were potentially, giving people a lift to Bondi. We're in Piermont, sort of near the city, doing the course. And you swung around, put your hand on my leg.
Did I?
Yeah, you were very upfront.
Racy?
Very racy. And a shudder went through me. And then I said, and you said, that's right. I said, you going to Bondi? Maybe could I get lift this evening? You said, yeah, sure, bro. Anyway, I didn't need to go to Bondi.
I drove you way past Bondi.
No, it was kind of on the way, but it was, anyway.
It was not on the way.
You were good enough not. Yeah,
I didn't make a comment about that at the time.
No, but you had other people in the car, and I remember jumping in that evening with other people, and I think I might have got the front seat. And anyway, off we went, and it was lovely. And then I got a lift the next couple of nights. But meeting you there and, but also having the intent of, I was there to do the work, was the primary objective. Nice to know you were there as well and kind of understand you and your trials and tribulations as you do at that sort of a landmark forum. And then then they do the Tuesday night sort of regather, don't they, the couple of days later. And you and I knew your story and I was there and I saw that there was a miracle table.
That's right. And I went over to the miracle table because as a single parent, I wasn't flush and I didn't have, I knew I didn't have the money to do the next round of courses. And you took the opportunity to, take me aside and suggest that you would pay for that course for me if the miracle didn't turn up. And because I was asking for a miracle to free up some cash. And I remembered thinking I'd never met anyone quite like you who was so generous, and I felt a real authentic, it didn't feel like you had an agenda, and you were kind and offered me the money, and I'd never met anybody ever who had done that, who'd reached out like that. And also I'd never accepted money from anyone ever in my life, not even my parents. So, and it didn't matter how tough the times were. I just went, no, we'll just have to make do. So it was interesting. I went home that night and I called my mother and I said, some gorgeous random stranger has offered to pay for my course, Landmark. What do I do? And she said, well, what have you learnt this week? What has been, your greatest learning? And one of the things that I remembered saying to her was, well, I've learnt to trust my instinct a little more and to not be so wary of men, because my big issue was that I didn't have a male friend and men were scary and, blah, 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 because I'd been so traumatized. And I remember hanging up thinking, I'm going to accept the offer and I'm going to honor the offer and I'm going to pay him back and I'm going to let him know that that's the kindest thing that's ever happened to me. And I did. And I left you a message. And here we are today. I still owe you $600.
You do. You gave me 100.
No, I gave you 200.
Well, it was $800.
It was $800.
Yeah,
I gave you 2,
right.
and I still owe you 6.
Bloody
Anyway, you can hold me to ransom with
Bit
that
of interest
one.
there.
But I'm so glad I did take it. I'm so glad I just let go of all of those, stubborn ego, resistance, moments that I've had forever where I went, no, I can't take money off a stranger. That's impossible. You'd be indebted to him on all levels. That wouldn't be right, and blah, blah, blah. It was the best thing I ever did.
And there was some risk in that for me, given the situation I was in at the time, literally there at the event and the repercussions of that.
You're not going to go into detail,
I'm
are
not.
you? No,
I'm not. No, I don't, there's no need to.
Come
but
on, it's your
but I guess
charity plea moment. You can. I'm going to talk to you now. Good.
No, it wasn't. It's not appropriate. But I guess, and I'm not trying to pump up my own tires, but I guess I was compelled, because there was, because of, again, as you said, because of what I'd learnt that week, and the opportunity that was there to help and contribute to someone else's life with, again, no strings attached. Like there might have been a 1% attraction going, oh, yeah, she's nice. But there was real authenticity, I feel, and I know that was like, why wouldn't I do that?
Well, I've watched you ever since, our lives together. I mean, the way you are in the world, now I understand what you did is just innate to who you are. You're a generous, kind, and, caring person. And whenever you see anybody in need, you reach out. That's what you do. I didn't understand it then because I thought there may have been a bit more of an agenda attached to that. Clearly there was. But
hang on.
you still are that person, and what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing that I didn't say no, that I've got to live a life with somebody that is generous beyond all measure. Mr. Arnott, thank you.
Let's then the next bit of that, just to sort of put some context to it all, was we didn't see each other for.
No, we had a 6-month hiatus.
Well, it was Easter. Because that was in like November, December or somewhere around there.
Yeah, and then we caught up again after the Christmas.
And that was all very we both went our separate ways and kind of sorted some stuff out. And then I think I left some tickets to the Easter show under Mum and Dad's the front doormat in Sydney, and I must have had your number or something.
Yeah, no, we were communicating by text. I remember that. And then...
But I did lose your number at some point. I remember.
Yeah, because a tractor ran over your phone. Remember? In the paddock.
That's right. And then, James Hardcastle up there at...
Nulla.
Nulla, but it was at Boonery or somewhere. It was over the road, over the highway on the western side. And he said that the other day.
What?
He remembers that so clearly.
Was he with you?
He was, it was on his place.
Oh, okay.
And he was driving the tractor, or one of his guys was driving the tractor, and my phone slipped. It was like some old, flip phone thing. And it fell out of my pocket. I jumped out of the tractor or something or other, and it was on the ground. And we laugh about saying, he had a field of mobile phones because he was cropping it to buried there. But he remembers that so clearly. It was Easter. I left tickets under the mat. You picked them up and you went.
Another generous moment, and I did, and I went with.
Well, there was probably a little bit more agenda in that one.
Yeah. Well, we knew we had to find each other. I said I had there was an apparition moment. I remember I was walking around the park at. Centennial Park it was, yes. And I remember just, having you in my head, having thoughts of you. And then I looked out and I saw a tree, in the distance, and I saw what looked like a spinning you, a hologram of you. And I remembered being overwhelmed by that thought. And I went, he's coming into my life. And I knew it. And you were on your way and you arrived. Like my knight in shining armour.
So there's a bit more to that.
Do we have to go there?
No, we don't. No, the few months went by. Yeah, a few months went by. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff around what happened next. Not to dangle too many carrots, but it was just. Well, I guess there were some challenges that we got through.
Yeah, we did. thanks to Landmark, we met and we were able to get on with business because we met, and knew each other's warts and all.
Yeah. So what we got married. I guess is the interesting thing is that, again, I know. So we got married here at Hanamino.
We had the most beautiful.
Oh no! What about the engagement? That was quite funny. When I asked you to marry me, where we went.
Oh, on a picnic.
Yeah.
I was feeling a little under the weather that day, and we took off and had a picnic not far from here, in a beautiful property that was owned by. Oh no, it wasn't actually on the property, was it? What was the?
Glenella. So over towards Mount Collins, towards Cowra from here, where the Burra River joins the Lachlan.
Thank you.
But we went over to Bennett Springs. We went to go through Bennett Springs, which is the Burra River, to get there, and I'd prepared
the sweetest picnic. A
little picnic, cup of tea, because I knew that spot, and I thought, on the way over there, we're going over there to collect acorns. That's right.
That's right.
Because Nick Rogers, my best mate, his mother Vivian had been and still is a wonderful oak tree grower and lover, and I knew there were some acorns over there I wanted to get my hands on.
And so he'd set the scene.
Tried to.
Tricked me into thinking we were just going on a little picnic to get acorns, but actually, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so we had cups of tea, little whatever else, thermos, and as we were I was making the tea, and when Angelica wasn't looking, I might have said, "Hey, look, is that a platypus down there?" I dropped a little $2 like out of a skill tester machine ring.
In my tea.
Engagement ring in the tea. Anyway, hoping that she wasn't going to choke on it, I thought, well, this will be the moment where she'll get to the bottom of the cup, see something shiny in there, and go, "Oh my God!"
Oh, is that
so? We were sitting there, and I was just, anxious and nervous and looking around, and you were feeling a bit under the weather anyway.
Yeah, so I didn't notice you were feeling uptight.
So I didn't know. And then anyway, and I think I might have said, "Oh, look, trying to expedite things a little." So we probably should get going pretty soon. And then, so you promptly sculled
a
bit more, and then just turfed what was in there over her shoulder.
And clink.
And you heard a clink, and I was going, lucky you didn't do that into the river.
Holy moly! Well, lucky it wasn't a real ring.
Well, that was why I didn't have a real one there.
Too cute. And then I fossicked around to find my $2 special, and went, "No, you can't be asking me to marry you." And I think I punched you.
Yeah, I think you did.
I think I punched you.
You're still recovering.
Yeah, no, but it was such a cute moment. And then, of course, I couldn't tell anyone because you hadn't asked Dad, so holding that secret in was tricky.
But the girls, you told the girls?
Yeah, I told the babies, yeah, of course. Yeah. And, yeah, so that was a beautiful day.
And then we went on this is not a trip down memory lane for everyone. I guess it's part of it, but
it is for me. I've forgotten all of this.
Can I just say the one last little bit of input I want to have here is that we, I think later that year you went on we'd already been on the countdown tour. So
yes.
So Michael Gudinski had put together a countdown tour. So there was 20 years worth of Aussie rock sort of legends that had been signed to Mushroom, his label, so and we went for 3 weeks, and I was kind of the roadie / groupie / whatever.
Fun guy.
Yeah, it was so funny. It was. I met so many amazing Australian rock and roll music icons. It was fantastic.
And what was interesting about that whole moment was how you slotted in, and it was like you'd been in rock and roll all your life. And I was really glad for the opportunity for you to see what my life was like before I met you, and how that really gave you a bit more of an awareness of where I'd been, what I'd been up to.
Your history.
Absolutely, and I was grateful for that. But you really took off, and I thought if you hadn't done ag science at uni, you should have just skipped that bit and joined a band. You would have just been carving it up.
I might have gone off the deep end.
You would have been one of those Jim Morrison moments where you just overdid it.
I think so.
But it was, it was a great thing, wasn't it? It was a great moment just to be away from everything here and in that environment, and to realise another part of your personality, because you really were on stage with the cowbell.
Yeah, we got in Brisbane.
In Brisbane at the entertainment centre, there was Charlie on stage hammering a cowbell like he knew exactly how to keep time. Like, no, he didn't.
I did.
And
I'm a good
timekeeper.
timekeeper.
Somebody had done your makeup that night too. So you had eyeliner on.
Yeah, I was trying to look like Brian Mannix.
Oh, hilarious. It was so fun. Anyway, it was a great memory.
It was. And the other funny memory was we'd get around on buses from the hotel to the gigs. And this particular moment there was I was sitting just opposite or near James Rain from Aussie Crawl. And we're all sort of, like getting off a plane, you're sort of waiting for someone to get in front of you and get out of the way and whatever. And I remember standing up and he was coming, he must have been coming from behind.
Yep, down the aisle.
And I said, after you, Rainsy.
I still remember the look on his face, like, Rainsy?
I don't think anyone had called him Rainsy ever. No one had ever thought that was a good thing to do.
I think he took it well, though.
Well, he looked at me and then he decided not to punch me in the head, and then
He's not that tough, trust me.
No, but it was quite funny.
No, it was a cute moment. But you get away with that sort of stuff.
I couldn't help myself.
You can be cheeky and irreverent, and people let you go with that.
Oh, it's all about timing.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Let's jump to kind of. Not that stuff wasn't interesting, but kind of, I want to sort of dig in a bit more your philosophy. We've got a candle burning here, and before we sat down, you kind of had a few words to say and what you were trying to, I guess, bring into the world.
Yeah. Are you talking about our angels and guides?
Yeah. We're sort of jumping to that, but I guess let's just do that now. Talk about that because I think it's given the book I've just finished reading.
Yeah,
the
Elementals
about the Elementals by Ogilvy Crombie, who was a Scottish interesting guy, really interesting guy.
What was he? Is he?
Well, he was as a child. He was quite ill in the Second World War. I think it was trying to get the timing right there. Now, no, it was the First World War. He died when he was, I reckon that was the First World War, and they said you've got to you can't go to war because you're sick, but he was a signaller. He was a signaller, that's what he was, in the Navy, I think that's right. Anyway, so he had a pretty low-key life in terms of activity because I think he had a dicky heart from when he was a child.
Right.
However, that gave him time to sort of be very creative and artistic and his acting and all sorts of crazy stuff. But he also had this other side of him which was fascinating, and his relationship with nature, and it took many decades for him to get to a point where he could communicate with and see the elementals and nature spirits. So I guess that's my understanding of that or appreciation has been there for a long time. But in terms of just understanding that a bit more and kind of steps towards that as a part of one's life. But you've always been. That's kind of from a unseen help point of view, that's been part of your life.
It has. And I've always acknowledged that there has been a presence surrounding me, and I knew it when I was young. I knew it when I was a little girl, and I remember seeing fairies dancing around on my bed, on windowsills. Whenever I was sort of in my space alone, I felt the presence of, and I remember the visions of. And I think somewhere in, those growing years, we forget that and we, kind of move away from that understanding or knowingness. And then I started to feel the need to be connected to the elementals. And I think it might have been triggered by Lila, Persia actually going into the Steiner school. And the conversations started again about, being in touch with the elemental spirits. And then I recalled the conversations that I used to have with what I believed to be my guardian angel, and I physically felt that presence on my shoulder, on my right shoulder always. And I recalled having conversations about, what I needed to be doing on the planet. What is my purpose here? Can you help me? Can you guide me? And I wanted to bring that conversation back, and I wanted to reignite that relationship. And then that's just something that I've tried to do alone, and I've felt a little bit awkward about it because I didn't know how to call in the energy, call in the spirits in an authentic, respectful way. And since we started our Steiner Spirit Group, which is another part of our journey we can discuss somewhere, that conversation has become easy, talking to our spirits, because obviously acknowledging that they're there and how important they are to us in our everyday, living. And they can assist us in ways that we feel, empowered and strengthened by. So, I always call in the angels when I feel a bit challenged. I was a bit nervous coming here to talk to you because I knew that you'd talk to me about my past, and I'm not comfortable with that, as you can tell. It's not as fluid as I'd like to be because I've stored a lot of that memory away, and it's not where I naturally go. And I asked for my guides to be with me, to help me be here present with you in an authentic, loving, kind way. And that just gives me the confidence to feel like I'm open to being guided into the space I want to be.
Was that something that Nan, your mum, kind of talked about or did or, introduced you to?
Yes, I don't know so much about
Nan.
Nan, my beautiful mother, who is a legend, who is a wonderful stoic, who is caring for my ailing father alone. She is my mentor, my greatest love. I'm going to cry because I love my mum.
I can't believe you haven't cried and we're an hour and 12 minutes in.
I was such a soft. Really? That long?
Yeah, I thought the first 5 you'd be blubbing.
Yeah, no, it has been a thing. Mum is an amazing human being. And in the face of adversity, I've never seen anybody just rise to the occasion more than my mother. What a woman. Yes, she never complains about her life. She understands that this is her lot. She was here to look after the children, and she has done that, committed to that 150%.
Well, her own children and grandchildren. And she's on the planet now, strong and wise and so needed because she has such a wealth of information to impart. And we revere her. She's in the highest esteem. She's the most wonderful classic
human being. And Mum was a bit of a spook in her day. So she would, I remember, sitting around the table talking about, all things esoteric, and we'd all be rolling our eyes thinking, what a nutbag. But of course, she set me on my, my journey as well. So I thank her for that. I thank her for opening up the spirit world to me. And I don't think she fully understood what she was doing. She just had an innate understanding that there was more to life than what we see here on this, earthly plane. Yeah, so definitely. But as, we watch Lilla here in the garden conversing with fairies, and she does have dialogue with fairies, and it's just so beautiful and humbling to watch that it has activated our awareness too. And I think that we can't not acknowledge that these elemental spirits are with us, and that we have a commitment, I think, to them to build a relationship, to create awareness, to be in nature with them, to listen to what we need to know, because they have stories they need to tell us too.
And they want to cooperate. Like they're just hanging out for us to ask them for help,
I think they need us to cooperate. I think they need us to understand that they're here for a reason, and that we have to build reverence and understanding that, they're here to build. What are they here to do? To create, a relationship with us so that we are respectful with everything we do out here. Because we understand that there's a life form beyond everything that we see that we have to, be aware of and treat gently.
Mm. Well, they think generally, well, they're a bit, not upset, but they kind of don't get, and as I don't either too, and I'm no saint by any means, the human species attitude to the planet as a resource to be plundered and used.
And pillaged, exactly.
Yeah. So,
and we're doing a mighty fine job of that, aren't we? So perhaps just by creating this awareness, for us as adults, but also the children, we're changing the attitudes there, and we're building the relationship. I want Lilla and Lordy to understand that there's just more to nature than meets the eye. And I don't want them to be afraid of anything out here. And you're doing a mighty fine job of building or encouraging that relationship. You do a great job. I want them to be digging in the dirt and just to seeing the layers of what goes on beneath that. I want them to connect to that. And if they understand that there's a spirit in there that attracts them, that they can have a relationship with, they will always have that reverence for. I think that's going to hold them in good stead.
Tell me about biome in the context of that as well.
Well, we've over-sanitised our world and we've over-sanitised our children, and we're all so afraid of letting them play in the dirt that we have to really have a good, long, hard look at ourselves about that, because that's the exchange that is so necessary for them to build their biome. They need to be in the dirt. They need to be able to eat, the sheep shit and come home with dirty fingernails and snotty noses, and they need to be out there having their body, communicating with the earth. And if they don't, they're not going to be able to build the gut biome that they're going to need for health as they get older. And it's been such a tricky thing, because we've raised our children in the city where we're all afraid of doing that. We over-sanitise, we clean our children. We bath them too often. We mop them up too much. Hose them down once a week is probably enough, I'd say. But when we're out here, that feels okay. The kids can feel a bit grubby and it feels like it should. But when you're in the city, it doesn't. We're all, just making sure they're as pristine as they can be, but it's not serving them. It's just not.
Well, Terry McCosker in the interview the other week, he said, they bathe once. They would bathe once a week. Once a week. The whole family in a tub, a couple of inches deep of water.
Oh, God.
And he said that was like he puts his good health and longevity to that would be a part of that.
Yeah,
just the biome,
for sure.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. And we got talking about biome. We got to meet Dr. Zach Bush 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. In Mel Vegas.
Well, yeah, of course. And, he drives that conversation home. We have to we have to understand that that's such an important conversation. We all have to change our thinking there. If our biome's not being exchanged, that's why we kiss so often, isn't it? Isn't that the reason?
That's why I don't wash my beard.
I'm just waiting for you to get really drunk tonight and I'm going to shave it off and not tell you.
How rude.
So I can kiss you again. No, back to the biome. Back to the biome. Let's talk about that more often. Because now I watch the kids lick the dog's face, and I remember Zach saying the best way to exchange your biome is to let your dog dig in the dirt and then come and kiss your kid. Mm. And once upon a time that would have freaked me out, watching a dog lick my child's face. And now I just think it's a normal exchange and very healthy one. Yes. So.
Any more points on children? Bringing children up, health, psychology, not psychology.
Well, it is my greatest job. It is the job I take most seriously. It's my vocation, and I've been doing it for a long time. And nothing to me is more important than looking after the kids. Nothing. And every day I'm grateful. I wake up and I look at them and I think they're healthy, they're strong, they're here with us, we're together. Is there any better job? Probably not. And my leveler is, if anything was to happen to the children, everything else would stop. So, I keep that in mind, front and centre every day. And what's the most important thing now for raising children? And it is to build their resilience, because we're going to need warriors now, and we all know that. The world is changing and it's evolving in a way that is going to be challenging, I think, for this generation. And we can't have softies. We know we're going to have to build tough kids. And Lila, who is our 11-year-old, who is out in the paddocks with you, is so adept out here. I think her survival techniques will be so well honed by the time, things start to get prickly in the world. I'm hoping that for Lordy as well. And for Venus and Persia, our bigger girls, well, they've kind of missed that moment. They're going to have to build their resilience their way. But what we have to do now is to create a greater awareness of what it is to survive in the world and be self-sufficient and autonomous and resilient. And that's our job. And that's the one I take most seriously right now.
just on, I want to get to that bit, that next bit, and here, Hanamino, future. Just as an example, I'm not sure if I shared it on podcast before, but one of the moments that I was most proud of Lila, she would have been, I reckon she'd have been Lordie's age actually, so 4. And we were out there burning, took her out there and burning swamp grass out there with a fire torch, and over a couple of days, it was a couple of afternoons, one time she tripped over and nearly got cooked, but that's another story. I don't think you've told you that bit.
Dogs.
But leading up to that or after, sometime it was in the daytime, and I couldn't. The fire torch was blocked, and I was trying to fiddle with it, and they're quite top heavy, those things. And I was there on the road, and it was wobbling around, and she was standing there watching, and she just put a little foot on the top to hold it steady. And I just looked at her and I went, "You kind of get it." Like she saw,
she's always doing
Dad, or
the need.
Dad in need, and she just thought, well, how can I help? I'll put my foot on there, it'll hold it steady, and Dad can get that thing cleaned out. And that I reference that quite often. I think you've touched on, in terms of the overused word of regenerative, but kind of a progressive, positively progressive kind of a approach to life. Your health, your fitness, the psychology, or I guess the work you've done. I mean, to me, that's a big part of, I guess, internal regeneration.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. It has been a big journey, and it's an ongoing, journey. Oh, I've got an itchy ear. Hang on.
And then the next, I guess, the thing that I'm interested in now, for lots of reasons, is I'll make sure I keep my head in that video there. Is we've got the kids up here kind of in the background a bit too, so if you hear the bit of chirping away there.
Just life goes on.
The journey of Hanamino, the future journey of
Hanamino.
How do you see, what does that look like, and how do you see, what's your role in all that, and how does that kind of help progress your own
personal journey? Well, I have learnt now to assert myself a little more out here. I've always felt as though it wasn't my place to progress anything too much. And I've supported you in everything, in every endeavour that you've had or wanted to do out here, believing that it was your domain and that you understood it, innately. I didn't have the awareness and the appreciation for it as much as you did. So it was really your bag. And as I said, my relationship with the land has changed just simply because watching your journey, your regenerative journey evolve has taught me so much and has created such a beautiful awareness and insightfulness in me about how regenerative farming really translates back to us in terms of regenerative living. And I've been stuck on that for quite some time. I just feel like that's the thing we're not talking about, how the effects of what you do out in the paddocks, how that has an effect on our lives and who we are and how we operate. And so I feel like that part of the story I want to tell out here. So I need to create a nurturing space that enables more learning and encourages more people to come out here and learn how to farm regenerative so that they can turn their lives around and live that way as well. And I think that is also has a lot to do with encouraging more women to come out and be in this space. So I need to create a more feminine kind of environment because it is a very masculine culture out here. And I felt that, and I've struggled with that a bit, I have to say, just not knowing how I fit in and where my groove is here. So I think that in terms of building an education facility here so that you can teach people how to farm regeneratively and biodynamically and all the things that go with that, I want to open up the space to encourage women to be here. I actually want to go back as far as just recreating the goddamn sewing circle, as simple and as basic and as primal as that, so that we can gather, we can sit around a fire, we can talk about, personal development, the elemental spirits. We can talk about food and nutrition and growing food, and we can just be slowing our lives down, reconnecting and starting to talk about what regenerative living actually looks like, feels like, and how available that is to us. And I don't think that has been a successful pursuit in the city because we're just too distracted, there's just too much going on and too many moments that are interrupted by our busy lives where we, should be prioritising that sort of gathering more often. We don't. So I think, if we can create a space for people to come here and develop Hanamino as a learning space, I think that would be beautiful. I also want and see the growth of community out here. I want to encourage more like-minded people who are interested in being on the land and people that want to grow food, that just want to learn how to farm, that just need to be, out here, I guess. So that's the vision I have, and I know that sort of somewhere meets your vision, and that's why we plan to build an education facility out here. And that's the next project. We've got a few on the go at the moment, but that'll be our next priority, or mine. That's where I'm headed, babe.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's something that we talk about a lot. And I guess there's timing around that.
There is timing, but also, I have no doubt that will all evolve according to when it's meant to happen. And I guess, as I've stated before, the world, it feels like it's unraveling, and more people are looking to be in a space where they can feel more self-sufficient, and the need to be in community and safety in numbers, I guess it is, but to be able to grow food and to feel supported and not be alone has never felt more important. And I know that because, we've somehow found a new family where we've been, the duality of our life is that we live here on farm, but we also spend time in Byron. And while we're educating the children, we're growing another community up there, and they're more interested in being here. and it's really curious because they're just desperate to get out and be on the land. And I just want to have that experience with my newfound friends because I can see that there's an urgency about that. And I think it'd be really naive to think that we can survive the way we're surviving right now into the future. That's just going to implode, and we all know that intuitively, and God's enough data to back that one up. So I'd like to be able to start building a sense of communal living out here. How that looks exactly, I'm not sure, because everybody's got to be self-sustaining. We can't support the universe, but we'll do our best to share what we do out here.
Tell me about tribes. What's sort of, we talk about it often, that the whole COVID shows kind of the spicy flu.
The spicy flu.
Spicy flu's kind of created interesting dynamics in society, and we often reflect on it's been an opportunity, not one that everyone was necessarily looking for, but I think at this point realised that probably needed to happen was is finding their tribe.
Totally. I think what's happened is, you either choose to live in fear or to live in, a positive mindset. And I've chosen to see the positives out of what's been going on, as much as I've had my moments of terror, and they are real and they are true because the change has been exponential. And my fear, I think, is born of what will happen to the children if they don't know the world the way we know it. But that's probably going to be a good thing, isn't it? We're a bunch of softies and we need to toughen up our children. So, tribes, we naturally gravitate to the place. Energetically, we find our tribes, and when you get rid of the people that don't necessarily vibe into your tribe vibe, you find that the people that you need the most, that understand the mission that you're on the most, just emerge. And we found that even with our Byron crew, we've opened up a space where people have just gravitated towards us because of our spirit group, and learning more about, the anthroposophical, Steiner-based lectures that we're learning.
Yeah.
I'm just finding that just so fascinating that's introduced a whole new tribe to us as well. And tribes are important. We need to feel that, we're building a place for our tribe to live and be a support network for each other. And I think we can do that out here.
Because that's the way the world used to operate, isn't it? When
Yes.
Tribal societies tended to work pretty well.
Well, I think the main objective, survival is, you've got to look after the planet, and you've got to be making sure that, to enable a tribe to survive and thrive, you've got to, care for Mother Nature. And we haven't been doing that. And our tribes are starting to disperse and disband, and we're all over the place. And I think when you have a like-minded tribe that wants to find a place where we can really have reverence for the planet and each other, I think that sounds like a healthier way to live. And I'm happy to kind of opt out of the system for a bit to see how that goes. I have no doubt that that's where we'll end up.
Well, without going down the rabbit hole, I think there's a lot of pushes on society at the moment. I'm just looking at Australia that is kind of, there's another fork in the road. People can choose to kind of do as they're told, and the convenience of just kind of, I'll just go this way, and it feels easy and comfortable and not challenging, and it does. But that from what I'm seeing and feeling, that comes with hidden challenges that are probably a bit down the track.
I think so, and I think we can all choose to be aware and awake to what is transforming.
Not woke.
No, not woke. I know you hate the woke word, but I that's a choice. You can be lazy and apathetic and just, continue on the way we've been going. But I think you're just not looking at the reality of the situation, and you're not diving deep enough into the underlying issues. So, I choose to read between the lines, and there's enough data to support what I'm thinking. I'm not going to lecture anybody in, how to live or what choices to make here and now, because that's not for me to do. I'm just talking to you in a pretty humble setting, just suggesting that I have an inkling that we need to make some changes so that we can survive in the new world, because there is a new world order about to, take hold. And I want to be prepared for that in the best way possible.
And taking out the context of the last 2 years and what you see and read, not on mainstream media anyway.
Well, we don't watch mainstream media.
No.
Is that okay to admit that?
Totally. For me, it feels like a good thing anyway. The focus back on community, the focus on your tribe. What it's become is what has been created, whether we like it or not, is a filter it's a friendship filter in a way.
Absolutely, it is. And the quality of those friendships is so important right now because, I think we've moved away from anything that wasn't feeling emotionally supportive or, just wasn't serving us in our lives. And that's sometimes a tricky thing to do, but you have to acknowledge that when you're growing in this space, you have to let go of some things along the way, because if they're not serving you, they have to go. And what was the point you were making before? I just was saying about go back to
building of tribes, the filter, the friendship filter.
Yeah.
The kind of
no, I just had a point to make, but my brain's gone. So I just think that's something that we're going to have to mindfully create. And I want that for the kids too. I want that for the kids to be in an environment where they can play, be in nature, learn, create their genius out here. And I just don't think the system is supporting that. I was talking about something about, I can't remember. It's gone. It happens.
I'm sure it will come back.
I'm sure it will. I'll let it go.
Useful.
It'll find its way back in.
Just looking at the time, we need to get ourselves going somewhere else anyway. And I am thinking we've still got to do our little Patreon gig, which is the Q&A, little quick Q&A for our Patreon members who have signed up for a monthly subscription to our group, our private I don't even like words, exclusive. I don't know, it's like being part of a club, and some people are in and some people are not.
It's
a choice.
Don't you dare turn up in denim.
No, it's a choice, double denim. What do they call it, Canadian dinner suit or something?
Yeah, that one.
So, don't take offence, any of our Canadian listeners. We love you. Patreon. So, for the price of a couple of
cafes,
organic oat chais, or probably even less actually nowadays.
Like $8 a pop.
Yeah, that's right. Not that much.
No.
You get the transcripts from every episode, monthly webinar with our guests or a guest that you guys help to choose, and also a weekly little update video from me. And also, if you sign up and you've got 2 months to work out whether you actually want to keep your subscription or not, we will fully refund your 2-month subscription, no questions asked.
That's
so
generous.
yeah, well, it's just taking
Nice.
called a risk. It's a Glenn Carlson idea, which I loved.
You mean Greg?
Greg.
Mate.
Greg.
Love you, Greg. Glenn.
No, his interview came out a few years ago, and I've had so much good feedback about that.
He's just an awesome person.
Lovely.
Yeah.
What's that noise?
There's a monkey in the other room.
Which
Ignore it.
probably means we should be wrapping up pretty soon.
Okay.
Oh, one thing. I just want to reference Tony Robbins because when we
forgot to talk about him and our
Robbo. We did a lot.
guy.
We did a lot of his stuff, didn't I? I did UPW without you.
That's right.
4-day course.
Baby's not coming.
Or I'll get baby.
Okay. Hang on. Do you want to sit with Mum? You want to sit with Mum and just have a little camp?
He's ready for sleep.
He is ready for us. Do you want to just sit on Mum's lap? You want to sit on Mum's lap for a minute? Or do you want to go and do that and I'll talk about Tony Robbins?
No, I love listening about Tony
Robbo.
Robbins.
Because you got a crush on. You got a crush on Tone. So UPW, and then we did Date with Destiny together.
It was just so
4 or 5
mind-blowing, wasn't it?
days. I think Lily was about this age. Or a bit
Yes,
less,
she was. It was so
up
great.
in the Goldie.
Yeah.
And then, hang on, buddy. And then there was, then I went to Fiji and did business mastery for 4 or 5 days. That was fantastic.
Yes.
I must dig up those notes because I invaluable. What's up, mate? Oh. Okay. Well,
Okay. That is just.
there's one last thing. And so Robbo, we'll put him in the show notes because he's just fantastic. So many nuggets of gold there and he's still doing it. Goals. You mentioned before about goals. You were trying to dull down the goals thing.
Well, I just think it's such a pressure right now with so much else going on that the goal-oriented lifestyle is just wasn't. You're serving me.
You're just slapping Tony Robbins in the face.
No.
now.
I love Tony Robbins, and it was just so pertinent then in that time of our lives. But the demands outside of achieving other things, the demands within the family group and dynamic are just so great right now. Making sure everybody stays alive and sane and healthy for me is so overwhelming. And maybe I'm investing too heavily in the whole concept, but I just took away the list and the box ticking because it was causing me grief because I'm just not that multifunctional and I wasn't able to satisfy, that goal ticking and it was killing me. So I just went, no, okay. Remove that, take that away. Focus on what feels important to you, which is the health and well-being of my family and myself. That's a full-time freaking job. Mm. I'm sorry. And if you're able to manage the, dynamic career and the children and the husband and the beautiful marriage and healthy food on the table every day, good on you. I think you're brilliant, but I just can't do it. So something had to give.
It's on.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good boy.
And so no goals for me this year. This year, anyway. We'll set goals, but they have to be simplified. They can't be too outlandish.
Well, I guess
just hang on.
Make them
because
smart.
the goal we've made for here is to achieve all the things we just discussed, which is to create community, bring people back to the land, share the wisdom and knowledge of biodynamics and regenerative farming, be true to that. That's a goal. But it doesn't seem overwhelming because it's part of the lifestyle we already live.
Yeah. We're that's in the pipeline. What's that, buddy? He wants one of those Arnott's trucks. Do you want one of those trucks up there?
Grab a truck, darling.
Grab a truck.
Grab it, darling. And then just keep quiet for a minute.
Your great-grandfather's collection.
Yeah.
Pretty
Don't
cute.
trash it.
Yeah.
It's been around a while. Yeah. So does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
You can have one of those, darling.
Yeah, well, you can look at it.
He can have it.
You'll score it one day. No, have a look.
Glue
Go
it
and
together.
I didn't want you to say that.
No, Daddy's being facetious.
Dad, how rude. So we're going to wrap it up. And for the Patreon peoples, you're going to get the extra bit, which you're going to do straight away. If you're interested, get on charliearnott.com.au, click on the Patreon button, and you will be finding yourself with all sorts of other cool show transcripts and monthly webinars and a weekly update from me.
So does that mean someone's going to transcribe again just how we met?
Yeah, it'll be written.
Oh, God.
Mama's getting 2.
That's
There's
great,
2 of them.
darling.
Angelica,
question?
Yeah,
Did you have another question for me?
Oh, no, was there one that I said I need to ask you?
You were going to ask me a question, and I
No future here, Robbo.
Okay,
Goals.
that's fine.
That was it. We've got Q&A.
All right.
next.
Well, I hope I just didn't dribble.
No, it was fantastic. I can't believe you didn't cry. I thought you'd be going to be
No,
crying
I
more.
think I was probably a bit nervous. So, you're just warming me up now. I think we could get started now if you like.
What do you interview? Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about something.
It's so Benny
I
Hill.
thought you were talking about something else. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone, for your patience, because of the interruption there in the middle.
It was a very fraught conversation, but it was just a little conversation that I'm grateful for having.
Yes, I'm grateful that you wanted to share.
Well, I'm grateful for you.
Got over your anxiety.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother story, isn't it? We'll talk about that next time.
Oh, I've got Q&A now. Thanks, Angelica.
Thanks, Charlie Arnott.
And the guest on next week's episode of The Regenerative Journey is Anna Rubinstein, a doctor who's doing some wonderful work in the rites of passage space with connecting parents with their children and vice versa. And caught up with Anna at his farm just outside of Mullumbimby in the northern rivers of New South Wales not too long after some floods, and a series of floods had come through and caused some devastation on his little farm there. But Anna thankfully gave me a few minutes of his time. A few hours of his time, I should say. We had a wonderful chat. Next week on The Regenerative Journey, Anna Rubinstein.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.